So I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman here, and he, believe me, what they're doing is something that is definitely needed because of the situation of how things are, especially today, with so many things that are going out with violence, with people that are dealing with certain issues in their lives that they definitely need help. They need some type of assistance to be able to get back on track. And he's going to talk about that, some of these programs that he does, but I'm going to let him introduce himself, and he's going to let us know who he's representing. And I'm just so glad that you're able to be here to share those services and resources you're providing. Thank you so much for being here. Say hello to the people that are listening.
Hello, people. Good morning. My name is Mike Galvan. I'm with United Counseling Center. We are located at 2300 West Commerce, Suite 214. We provide services for perpetrators of domestic violence. We have been providing services for approximately 18 years there at that facility. What do we know about domestic violence? We know that it encounters all ages, all social, economic groups.
It's a topic, to be honest, right? It's a topic nobody wants to talk about. And unfortunately, it's a big problem, not only here in San Antonio, not only Bexar County or the city, the state, but around the world. I mean, this is not an isolated case. And I don't know what the numbers are, but I'm sure you could probably tell us. But the fact of the matter is that it is a big problem that a lot of times people kind of hide because maybe they're ashamed or, they don't want to deal with it, and it's understandable.
You're exactly right, Sam. You're exactly right. These individuals are individuals that have been caught by the criminal justice system or caught by the cops, have gone to court and are mandated to attend a 24-week program. Mm-hmm. And this is 1 day a week for an hour and a half. And these are either individuals that are on probation or on parole as well.
And I know, like I said, it's a big problem. And when it gets to the point where they have to come to you, it's because they've already been through the system, right? They've already been, some situations that have happened, either domestic violence that are happening within the families. And a lot of times the problem, I believe, and you can correct me on this, but it's a cycle. It's a cycle because nobody just all of a sudden from one day to the next pops up and starts abusing people. This is something that I know, speaking to Deborah about, she was telling me that this is something that is not just happening at that very moment, but it's something that maybe they've gone through childhood. They saw that in their homes, or they're dealing with things like that, and they believe, well, this is the way I treat people or, my loved ones.
You're exactly right. It is a cycle. The cycle of violence, there are three phases in the cycle of violence. The first phase is we have the tension building phase. The second phase here, we consider that the actual acute battering phase. Mm-hmm. And the third phase is called the honeymoon phase.
So there's different phases of that's what you're telling me, the different phases of what people are going through or how the process maybe starts? That's
exactly right. I'd like to share a little bit about how this happens and what's the difference between you and me and my population and the population in the city. Mm-hmm. The only reason why these individuals are there within the criminal justice system is because somebody called the cops on them. And again, everybody has a tolerance level. Everybody is going to get mad. Everybody's going to get angry. The question is, how do they handle that situation? Do they walk away? Do they take a time out? Or are they just aggressive and they become violent?
Right. And you're talking about the perpetrator?
I am talking about the perpetrator.
Right.
Exactly right. It's interesting that we now have a program called Teens Against Dating Violence, and these are ages 13 to 17. And the reason why we started this program was because many of my parents in my program, both women and men, have told me that if they had this program when they were younger, maybe they would not be in the situation that they are in today. Mm-hmm. So we are inviting anyone and everyone to share their kids with us on Saturday mornings to allow them to come in and so that we can teach them what the red flags are in a relationship.
Right. And a lot of times, like we're talking about, right, it starts sometimes at a very young age because this is what they see at home. And so they learn that and they think, well, this is what I'm supposed to do or how I handle relationships.
You're exactly right, Sal. It is a learned behavior. Most of the people see it at home. They see it in their environment. They see it in their peers. It's not a genetics. And people say, well, I'm born with it. No, it's a learned behavior. You're exactly right, Sal.
Yeah. And it's sad because now we're gearing these programs to teenagers, right? I mean, the way things have been very, recently because of the pandemic and everything. I mean, the mental issues, the domestic violence, it seems like every year it gets younger and younger. I mean, there was a story about a teenager. Well, he wasn't even a teenager. He was 10 years old that committed suicide. And so it's starting very early now. The problems, the issues that they're dealing with, whatever it may be, but they're not being addressed. And that's the problem because they allow them to foster, to grow, and they think, well, this is normal. This is the way life is because they don't have anything to counter it with.
You're exactly right. We have tried to get into the local school districts, but they have told us that it doesn't happen in their school district. It's not happening when the parents are telling us, please help our child, please help us. What was it, about a month ago when they had that 10-year-old child shoot the teacher at school?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I have a lot of parents who now have a child that's 12 and 13 years old and going into the criminal justice system because they did something wrong. We are out there to help these individuals. So we would like to make a pledge to any parent out there that feels that their child has these issues or they're afraid to talk to somebody. We have a support system. We have a group that they would like to share and they can help. It's a safe zone.
Right.
So the individual can come in on a Saturday and share how they feel and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And again, the CDC just recently, about a week ago, put out a big study of the suicides. I mean, the suicides in the last year, 2021-22, has increased. I think the latest number that CDC had was like 25% increase. It's just outrageous. And we need to put a stop to that and help.
Right, exactly. And those numbers continue to rise. And you're right. I saw an article which I actually wanted to read more because it was talking about teens, especially younger girls are the ones now that I think are either contemplating or are committing suicide. And these are teenagers, I don't remember the age group, but I know that the problem exists. And by us just ignoring it or like you were saying, it doesn't really exist, we don't see it here, doesn't mean it's not happening. Because a lot of times these youth, working with youth, I understand that a lot of times these are silent cries that people aren't hearing because they're thinking, okay, she's not saying anything, so everything must be okay. And that's the problem.
You're exactly right.
And so being able to have these programs, and like you said, we have any parents that are listening, believe me, if you're not engaged with your youth, if you're not knowing what they're doing, or I can almost guarantee you that a lot of them are, especially the way after COVID's been, what happened after COVID, that they're dealing with so much, but it's a silent problem that they're dealing with, and they don't come out and share it. And unfortunately, it happens, right? I don't know why, but I've noticed that a lot of times the youth are more apt to talk to someone else versus their parents. And because you think that they're not telling you something, you may think that they're okay. And that's not the case because, believe me, working with the youth, a lot of youth have shared things with me that they wouldn't share with their parent. And so we know that they're going through a lot of things in their life right now that are, oppressing them in so many different ways, whether it's the mental side of it, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's suicide. There is a problem. There is a big problem.
You're exactly right, Sam. And also, if some of the ministers and pastors out there in San Antonio would be aware of the different signs, I think it was about a month ago, there was a big study that they were saying that a lot of priests and pastors, they don't know where to turn to get services. And that was a big issue up in Austin and Dallas, that there was a lot of issues like that. So I invite anyone and everyone to please reach out to us and invite us into your congregation, and invite us into your church to allow us to speak about teens against dating violence. And I think you will understand.
Yeah, and you have to. I mean, the church can only do so much. And I know they can touch on the spiritual aspect of it. I understand that. They can pray for them. I get that. That's definitely something that has to happen. But a lot of times they're not equipped to handle the mental side of what they're dealing with. And I had one young lady here a while back, and she's a proponent of that, of, engaging the outside sources like what you provide and trying to integrate them. She was dealing with domestic violence on the adult level as well. And she's saying, look, a lot of women are coming to you, but you're not engaging them as far as trying to provide a service or a program that's outside of the church.
Perfect.
And it doesn't mean that you're falling short of what you're doing within the church. And that's not only for the adults, that goes for the youth as well. Being able to know that, okay, we can do what we can do here to support them and encourage them on the spiritual aspect of it. But a lot of times, you know what, there needs to be something more outside of that as a program to be able to say, okay, these are the symptoms or these are the things why things are happening, and giving them better information on how they can deal with those issues.
You're exactly right, Sam. I think that if we could take a group of ages 13 to 16, 13 to 17, and empower these young ladies and make them aware of the red flags and really instill with them these boundaries.
Right.
I think that would be the key, really. And then teach these young men as well. Once these boundaries are set, then you need to understand them and respect them.
Exactly. And I'm a firm believer, and I've talked about this with some of the guests that have been here, and they agree wholeheartedly that information is power. One guest here put it very clearly, and that's so true, that just because we have the information, it is power, but unless we execute that information into our lives and really utilize those things that are provided or given to us, like this program that you do with the adults and as for the youth, things will get better, hopefully, but there will be a change. But if we're not going to use that information, if we just keep it, it's kind of like getting the gift, right? Never really opening it to enjoy the gift that we've been given.
Perfect.
And so this is the programs that you're offering. And if you're listening, if maybe you're going through domestic violence, and a lot of times, you know, I know the ladies or the men, because let's be honest, right? Men go through it, and that's even more of a taboo, right? It's like, oh, I'm a guy, you know, who's going to beat up on a guy? But it does happen, right? I mean, I don't know what the numbers are with that, but I know it does happen.
It's interesting. We have increased our ladies program this year close to like 12%. So there is an increase in violence as the women being the perpetrator.
Really?
Yes.
So those numbers are kind of climbing a little bit?
They are. It's interesting. And I just want to point out that a lot of reasons why men batter, first and foremost, Sam, this is quite interesting and quite true, because they can. And a man will tell you this. In my program, he said, why do you do this? He said, because I can. Who's going to stop me?
Is this a general answer that you typically get, or?
All the time. And I asked them, why did you do what you did? And it's because I can, or because she talked down to me, she discriminated. I mean, there's so many different areas and reasons why that excuses. There you go. Very well said. And it's on both sides. It's disturbing to see the number of people. I believe that when COVID hit, I think there was an increase of something like 2,500 cases of domestic violence. It just increased over
here in Bexar County.
Here in Bexar County over like a period of 6 months. It was just outrageous. Well,
because now you're like stuck at home. I mean, before you may have an option on like, yeah, maybe I can go to mom's or I can go here to kind of pull away from that. But when that happened, it's like, no, everybody stay home. And it's like, I think, and that did cross my mind that it's not only the adults, but the kids and everybody that's there. It's like getting stuck inside of a cell. And it's like you don't have an outlet. And believe me, even somebody that's never done domestic violence, you can get to that point where it's like, you know, they kind of push your buttons, that those things can happen even more likely than before.
Exactly right, Sam.
And so how is it that your program is helping these young men or young women, like you're saying, as far as like, what type of program is it? Is it mostly just, I know that they come in, right? It's not virtual anymore. How many sessions or how many weeks, or what is the time frame for the program?
For our adult program, it's a 24-week program, and it's 1 day a week for an hour and a half. And they'll come in, and every week we have a different subject matter, and we'll be able to share, and they'll be able to share and give their views about their relationship, about their opinions, and everything else.
Well, I think the majority of what your program is it court mandated, or is it voluntarily, or is it, how does that, what are your numbers on that? I'm just curious.
It's 100% court mandated.
Is it?
Yes,
okay.
It is. We might get one or two individuals that maybe are coming in before their court, and they were asked to do that by their attorney so that their charge could be lessened.
Okay. And so it's rare that you would have somebody that would just say, hey, I got a problem, and would walk in?
Very rare.
That's sad because, and again, like we were talking about earlier, that programs like this is that we need to get it out there because there may be somebody listening here. Okay, if you have a parent, if you have a father, a mother, I mean, a brother, a sister, anybody that's going through this, you need to know that there is hope. There is an outlet. There is something that you can utilize to be able to address that problem, because if we don't do it, it just, again, like we're talking about, it's a cycle. It just continues over and over. And the last thing, and because, and I think talking to Deborah, that she's had a couple of experiences, I think, from people that have been killed because of that. It goes to that level to where the anger, it just becomes like, okay, enough is enough, and you're dead to me.
That is exactly right. I have had 2, maybe 3 women in my program that have killed their husband. And you would think that they would be in prison right now in jail, but they're not, because they got off on self-defense, that there was a period of over a year that each weekend they would be abused or they would be hospitalized. And so it's just unbelievable. And I've asked women, why don't you leave? And it's kind of difficult in my program to kind of find out what the difference is in a woman. Are they there because they are the victim, or they're there because they are the perpetrator? So there's a distinction. And for some women, they say, you know what? And they will say this out loud: I am the perpetrator. I want to be in power. I want to choose this, and I want to do this, and I want to. And then I've had other women in my program say, no, I was there because I was in self-defense. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it goes both ways, right? Not just because you think, oh, well, men are usually mostly, I mean, those are the numbers, I think, but like you're talking about, there's a shift now that's probably happening, that women are becoming the aggressor. And who knows why that may be happening. I don't know if they're saying, hey, enough is enough, and I get that part as well. But then for them to take it as far as, killing someone. But again, I think this is probably where the difference is between men and women, because the men are more doing it because out of anger, and the women are doing it more out of self-defense.
That is exactly right.
So that seems to be the typical, if the women are doing the killing then.
At least the 2 or 3 that have been in our program, we've done our research and we know why.
Mm-hmm. And so, again, those are things that are happening right now. And it doesn't seem, unfortunately, if you really look at the way the world is right now, man, there's so many things that are just going the opposite way. And if those like us or people that are wanting to make a difference aren't getting involved or aren't being able to, help someone that may be in need by either providing this information or by saying, hey, there's a way out, you need to utilize this because it's there for you to be able to use. And if you don't, then some of the blame falls on us because we're not knowing that there is a problem. Then what are we doing to help that problem? And if nobody's talking, then I think that's where it gets worse.
You're exactly right, Sam. We have stressed to all the parents, please, if you have a child between the ages of 13 and 17 and you believe that they would benefit from this program, please reach out to us, have them stop in on a Saturday and, see what we're all about.
So these programs are every Saturday at your location?
Every Saturday at our location.
Okay. If they want to get in touch with you for more information, where can they reach out to you, or social media or whatever information you have out there for them to connect with?
We have tadv.info.
Okay.
And then they can call us at 210-229-1933 if they like.
Okay. So again, listeners, you're not in this alone. You may think you're alone because of the situation, but believe me, there are people that care. There are programs that are out there for you and for the people that are doing, the hurting as well. So don't ever give up, especially if you're an adult, or more so for the kids. And again, we want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your time and letting people know that these programs are available.
Thank you so much, Sam.
So thank you, listeners. We will be back here again next week. We appreciate you joining us here today. God bless.